I used to be a cabin crew executive with Singapore Airlines or SIA for 35 years before my retirement. So many have asked me whether during my tenure with Singapore Airlines have I ever served people like Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, the former Prime Minister of Singapore, who needs no introduction, the late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. Of course, I had on a few occasions. I had the privilege and the honor to serve Mr. Lee and his wife on the flight. Well, I can relate a few stories which happened on my flight, and maybe a few also happened to my crew. Uh, I still remember it was in 1974. I had Mr. Lee on my flight, and he and his wife was on my flight, and he wanted some Straits Times English newspapers, which was published in Singapore, and of course the Chinese newspapers too. I we looked for it for them, but we couldn't find those newspapers, unfortunately, and I had to, you know, turn him down. But how to say no to Mr. Lee Kuan Yew? He is such a revered man, and people are scared of him, including ourselves. We are nobody. So when he went away to the toilet, I spoke to Mrs. Lee, his wife. I told her that it was unfortunate that we don't have those newspapers which Mr. Lee asked for. So, sensing that I was a little panicky and afraid, she reassured me with a sweet smile and said, "Young man, don't worry, I will speak to him." And then, a few moments later, Mr. Lee came out from the toilet, and I overheard his wife, Mrs. Lee, told him, "Harry, today they don't have any Straits Times for you, only the Chinese newspapers." Then he said, "It's okay, no problem." So she reminded him not to bother the crew about the newspapers. You know, we were saved by Mrs. Lee. And another incident was uh, he wanted a can of beer. I think he had Heineken specially catered for him. His instruction was, or the instructions we received from our office was that Mr. Lee doesn't take cold or chilled beer. He will take the beer serve him at room temperature, that means not chill. But fortunately, I chilled one can just in case. And true enough, on that flight, he asked for a can of a glass of chilled beer. And we were lucky that I chilled that can of beer for him. Otherwise, it would take another 10 minutes or 15 minutes to chill his beer, you know, and serve him. We may get into trouble. Then another time was that he didn't want to eat. Uh, I don't know why. Uh, he Maybe he wasn't hungry, but after the meal service, he passed by the galley and he saw the crew eating. And he asked, "What are you eating?" So one of the crew explained to him. He asked whether he could also have the same dish. "Is there any spare one?" So the crew said, "Yes, Mr. Lee." Then they served him. There was another incident. The, he told us when I presented him with his menu for him and his wife, different from the other first class passengers' food. And he said, "No, I don't want to eat them. You can have my meals, you and your crew. Go ahead. But we will eat what the other first class passengers eat. But please serve us last. Serve all the other passengers first, and you come back to us." They were seated at row one, and usually our meal service starts from row one, two, three, and four. But he said, "You go and start and serve the others first, and you come back and serve my wife and I." Sure, we did that. He was very pleased. Then on another flight, uh, when Mr. Lee traveled with us, we were told by the office that we should not serve cigarettes and also discourage the passengers from smoking cigarettes because Mr. Lee had a sinus problem. Okay, so I had this passenger in the first class seated a few rows behind Mr. Lee, and he was smoking away after lunch, the meal service. I told him nicely to put out his cigarette, and he did. But when Mr. Lee Kuan Yew heard that, he was quite irritated or annoyed with me. He called me up. He said, "You come here. You shouldn't be telling the other first class passengers not to smoke because of me." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lee." Then this passenger came to my rescue. He said, "Mr. Prime Minister, I put out that cigarette not because he asked me to. I put it out because I have, uh, a deep respect for you, and I didn't know that you had sinus." Well, he saved the day for me. And there was another story where I was not on board, but I heard this uh, incident where the co-pilot, came down from the cockpit and asked Mr. Lee to sign his autograph, a signature on his memoir, on the book, autobiography. And Mr. Lee took the book and put it aside on the table, and he carried on doing his work. Then the pilot was waiting for maybe half a minute. Then Mrs. Lee, who was seated across the aisle, told Mr. Lee, "Harry, the pilot has got to fly the plane, you know." Oh, he said, "Okay." So he signed and he gave it to the pilot. I was told. And on one of my flights, we lock up one of the two first class toilets for him because he's very particular. We were told that to make sure that the toilets are clean because he's very particular about cleanliness. So one of my crew locked up the toilet, and then when he wanted to use, my crew opened the toilet from the outside, and he was annoyed. He was actually angry. He said, "You locked this toilet for me, isn't it?" "Yes, Mr. Lee." "You shouldn't be doing that. This is no good because it's not fair for the other first class passenger. Don't ever do that. All right?" Well, nice man he is, very considerate. Uh, we respect him, we revere him, and he was a great man. And it was an honor serving him. And also, we also never forget the gracious, lovely Mrs. Lee Kuan Yew. Thank you for watching my video.